Okay, this is Avarice. We are back with some more Mass Effect Andromeda news. Let's get into it, but first and foremost, I do want to say that this is actually the second attempt at recording this. No, third. First attempt, I forgot to turn the microphone on, and for some crappy reason, I didn't even notice it until I was almost finished. The second attempt, it was over 20 minutes long, and I do not want them to be that long. Anyway, not the point. Let's get into it, because there is a lot to cover. So anyway, yes, 2 days ago on N7 Day, a cinematic trailer for Mass Effect Andromeda was released, and I'm going to spend this episode dissecting it. Now, bear in mind, there was quite a lot of content to go over, so this may take a little bit of time, but hopefully it won't take as much time as, well, last time. But regardless, I'm going to be putting a link to all of the sources I have used in the description, so if you want to confirm them, please do so at your leisure. So, anyway, yes, straight away we know we are being thrust into the action as Ryder's father opens up with a monologue, which is as follows. We slept for hundreds of years, dreaming of a new home, but when we finally awoke, our dreams of peace were shattered. Now this is accompanied by, well, a little bit later I should say, by scenes of what I think is Ryder's father's ship, called the Hyperion, blowing up. Now, if you do not know, Ryder's father is named Alec, and the male Ryder is named Scott, and the female Ryder is named Sarah. So now we can actually give a name to the face, but I do not know whether it's like Mass Effect or the original trilogy where basically the default characters had a default name, in that case John and Jane. Maybe it's the same. I'm not entirely sure whether it would be. Maybe your father refers to you as, hey look Sarah, what are you doing? Or Scott, what are you doing? I'm pretty much 50-50 on that subject, pretty much because BioWare has always said that Mass Effect is a game series where pretty much it's your game, you make it up as you go along, and even though there are only a set number of courses that you can take, again, it is your game. I don't know, I'm pretty much 50-50 on that. Maybe it's sort of like Fallout 4 where Codsworth can refer to 1,000 names, and if your name falls in there, then of course he's going to be able to refer to you by one of those names. Instead of sir or ma'am, it could be, hey look Scott, sir, Mr. Scott, I don't know. Again, 50-50. Now, you can see that there is quite a bit of carnage, i.e. the Hyperion blowing up. A lot of ships are being blown up as well, though it's not clear whether this is internal sabotage or whether it is a hostile action perpetrated by one of the new alien races in the Andromeda Galaxy. I'm thinking maybe it's the latter one, or the one I just said. Basically because, hey, you are an alien species going to an entirely new galaxy, and these alien races are reportedly at war, and they may think, hey look, the other side has brought in another faction to try to overwhelm us, or to, basically, you know what I mean. Maybe they could think that you are employees by the other side, and hey, it would only be prudent to take you out, but that is entirely speculation. Now we can see that Alec Ryder, i.e. the father, and indeed the male protagonist, Scott Ryder, are both on the Hyperion. Now this is actually quite important. Number one, because the Hyperion crashes onto a desert planet, and number two, because Alec Ryder is actually, he was the original Pathfinder. The role later given to the player character, though clearly it's obvious that the title changes to the child because the Hyperion crashed. Now, again speculation, but there could be a number of reasons why you become the Pathfinder. Maybe your father dies, maybe he is that injured that you have to literally, you can see a flare is being fired and Mako is there, so clearly you can find a way back to the Andromeda Initiative fleet, but maybe he's either dead, as I said, or he is that injured that he is reduced to a consulting capacity, or basically an office job. Who's to know? But either way, the kids, one of the kids, given the role of Pathfinder, and Alec is reduced to the, he's either dead or is reduced to an office job. Now, I do know that Alec is heard throughout the game, though if he was to die, that would imply that he is heard because, well, maybe there's recordings of him on holotapes and video footage. Who's to know? I do know for a fact that Jennifer Hale, the voice actor for the female Shepard in Mass Effect 1, 2 and 3, has actually a bit of a role in this game. Apparently it's only in the form of an Easter egg, but I'm saying maybe it's something similar. Clearly Shepard hasn't come along for the ride, so clearly her voice, and maybe even Mark Meer, who played the male Shepard, clearly basically it's only in the form of holotapes, and maybe it's something similar with Alec if he had died. So anyway, this is where the brother or sister Ryder comes in with their ship named the Tempest and their crew, who we know features a Krogan named Jack, and possibly features other races, maybe from the new races in the Andromeda Galaxy. We do not know, but of course that won't happen in the beginning. But we do know there is a Salarian, though we don't know whether the Salarian is to be found in the crew. And there is also apparently a biotic specialist who may be the Asari that we can see several times in the footage that we already have access to. Now, the whole thing with the Hyperion burning and Alec's father potentially dying, I don't know whether he would be resurrected, again speculation, or whether or not he is just injured and reduced to again an office job, actually kind of reminds me of the beginning of Mass Effect 2. Pretty much what happens with Shepard. I thought it was quite resplendent of that. But speaking of Mass Effect 2, it is now known, hence this screenshot right here, that the Initiative was founded in 2185, deep in the middle of Mass Effect 2. Now this does indeed throw out some of my earlier theories, that of the Initiative starting up mid-Mass Effect 3, well, mid to late Mass Effect 3, during the carnage of the Reaper War, when the galactic races would be panicking the most. Now, because the Initiative leaves in 2185, it is obvious that nothing is known of the events of Mass Effect 3, therefore leaving it up to the player to imagine what has happened. Well, obviously it's 600 years in the future, I said that last time, so clearly the Mass Effect 3, well, that cycle would have completely ended, and whether the races are still alive or not, again, it's up to the player to imagine for themselves. Now, it does say here that the Initiative is a privately funded one, separate from the Systems Alliance, which is basically the main human faction or coalition found throughout the previous trilogy. Now, this could imply two things. Basically, this privately funded group saw what was happening, and I think this is the most likely theory. Anyway, they saw what was happening with the Collectors. They deduced that the Collectors were working for the Reapers, and that it was only a matter of time before things went bad, considering the Crucible was only known, or Crucible from Mass Effect 3, was only known to the highest ranking humans. I think this is likely, as barely anyone knew of it, and thus the Initiative was thought to be humanity's only hope, i.e. Collectors were abducting colonies left, right and centre. Anyway, so yes, number 2, maybe the Initiative was just brought about due to an unforeseen event that could occur separate from the Reaper. Well, the destruction caused from the Reapers. Now, whether this is true or not, it's again entirely speculation, but basically I'm not saying it's anything like what happened with Superman and Krypton, but it is just a theory to throw out there. Now, I think I'm going to keep this screenshot up for the entire time, well, not the entire episode, but basically while we're talking about it. Basically, it does say here that this is the most ambitious endeavor of any galactic race to date. Well, clearly it's talking about the exodus of potentially millions of beings to a place 2.5 million light years away. Therefore, I do still think that maybe the Initiative wasn't just funded by Earth. Maybe members of the other races thought the same thing too. Maybe they thought the Collectors abducting humans was something that could have been, well, leading to the Reapers. Who knows?